Hello there, many thanks for joining us on Joy Asanya Live this beautiful evening. But as Nigeria continues to search for sustainable pathways to economic growth and good governance, one sector stands at a powerful intersection of identity, influence, and opportunity. That's the creative industry. This industry is contributing an estimated 2 to 3% of Nigeria's GDP, with projections, of course, pointing to even greater potentials. The sector is more than entertainment. It is an economic force, a diplomatic tool, and has shown that it is also a cultural compass. But within this growth lies critical questions. Are we telling our authentic stories, or are we losing our voice in the pursuit of global validation? My guest today, Mr. Nnamso Akpan, is a creative entrepreneur and CEO of Lantawood, working at this intersection, that is of the film industry and diaspora engagement and cultural storytelling. From the United States, he is actively pushing African narratives through cinema, championing indigenous identity, authenticity, and global relevance of Nigerian stories. And that's what we'll be discussing today as we explore how diaspora influence, indigenous creativity, and cultural pride can shape governance, unlock economic potential, and reposition Nigeria on the global stage. Not as imitators, of course, but as originators. We're being joined now by Nnamso Akpan, who is the CEO of Lantawood Job Development Association based in Uyo, Nigeria. He is actively involved in business development and entrepreneurship in both Nigeria and Atlanta, Georgia. And he is the founder of Lantawood, the creative industry initiative focused on development opportunities for talent in both West Africa and urban America. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, if you can hear me, can I hear you? Okay, I think we are having technical issues there, but as long as you can join us, we'll continue the conversation. It would be nice to have you have this conversation about how Africa can be more original instead of imitating the West. And you are a proponent for the importance of having they all sell what we've got, and Africa has got so much to sell. So I cannot wait to have that conversation with you. But this is something that is very concerning for a lot of spectators in the industry that often say that sometimes when they sell of what Africa has, it comes off almost as if the West would not accept it. They are afraid to put themselves out there. We had a discussion earlier where you talked about the originality of jollof rice. I mean, nobody else does it apart from Africa. How can we sell this? When you discuss breakfast, for instance, the first thing that comes to mind is maybe the American breakfast, where you have bread, you have sausages, and all of that. But what happened to the indigenous breakfast that we have? African movie industry have been complacent in this issue where it sometimes seems as if we are pushing a narrative about our indigenous cultures, our meals, our dressing, almost as if it is not good enough for the global stage. In fact, even in local movie industries, we also see that. I see that you've joined us, Mr. Akpan.
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you live and clear.
Finally, I'm happy you're joining us right here. But that's the conversation of being original instead of the imitation we've been doing. You've worked hard in pushing these narratives of how important it is, how beautiful Africa is, and how important it is to showcase what we've got, especially in storytelling. Just give us an idea, first of all, how it has been received from Atlanta.
Well, we could do better, but it's important to understand that Nollywood industry is very well received in Atlanta, in the United States, all over the diaspora. Our industry at maybe 10 years ago became the second largest movie industry in the world. But unfortunately, we have not been able to take advantage of that industry and the power the industry has. For example, a lot of Nollywood movies are still showcasing, they showcase a lot of eating of noodles as if noodles was a high-end food instead of using our indigenous foods, which is the avenue to promote our indigenous foods. So in those areas, we're still kind of lacking in the promotion that we should be doing. Now let's go into now. I want you to ask me specific questions. So because my mind is so wide in the industry that if you help by being specific, I'm going to be able to help our listeners and viewers with specific answers.
You do, and how it became such a passion for you in storytelling, especially. You've helped a lot of, like you said, you developed an entire movie industry in Atlanta. I would like to know how that has gone, the receptivity of the location where you are to the African story, like you've been pushing over the years. I guess that's where I want to start before we get into how this industry, the creative economy, has so much potential for our GDP.
Now, when I came to Atlanta a couple of years ago, over 20 years ago, the industry was not. It was just after when Atlanta hosted the Olympics in 1996. Atlanta was growing, but nothing much was happening in the film industry. So when I got here, it was like an open field where you had people like Tyler Perry, who was not even into filmmaking. He was actually just doing stage plays. He actually his introduction into the filmmaking world was kind of, from my point of view, an accident because he was doing exactly what um, professionals were taught not to do, which was filming stage plays with camcorders and presenting them as films. That's exactly what he was doing when I got here in Atlanta, and we also in Nigeria. We're taking simple stories and making movies. So bringing that over here, it was really accepted here. The industry, the people in the grassroots Atlanta just accepted it. They started doing it. They started doing it differently from how Hollywood was doing. And in a period of like 10 years, Hollywood started recognizing the talent that Atlanta had when it came to film and storytelling. And just like it was our vision, in fact, my organization's motto, or what was it called, hashtag in those days, it was our logo. It talked about bringing Hollywood to the hood. The hood would be Atlanta, bringing Hollywood to Atlanta. And it took us maybe 10 or so years to do that. And today, Atlanta is the number one filmmaking destination for Black people in the world. So the idea of filmmaking has been accepted here in the grassroots method here in Atlanta. It's been accepted tremendously. And while we were doing it, Nollywood was also doing it. And in fact, in around 2010, 2011, Nollywood was leading so much that people here in Atlanta were ready for lectures, for teachings by Nollywood producers. They were ready for Nollywood to teach Americans how to make movies. Around 2010, 2011, 2013.
Not so
Americans
long
were ready,
ago.
not too long ago, Americans were ready to come to Africa and learn how to make movies. But what ended up happening was, again, kind of like colonization. The internet came in, the internet was faster, YouTube was getting its position, Netflix was getting its position, and unfortunately, yeah, I say unfortunately, Hollywood attracted Nigerians and Nollywood filmmakers to want to be in Hollywood, to want to be on the internet, to want to be on YouTube, to want to be on Netflix. And they left what they had built and started coveting Hollywood's industry. You see, when you're coveting something else, you're letting go what you have to a point that
Exactly.
you don't even understand or recognize the power and how close you had come to conquering the world of entertainment. So it's a real incredible story. A lot of people feel the internet has helped the creative industry, the filmmaking industry, but in reality, it hasn't. The internet has destroyed it. It has destroyed the music industry also.
Well, it's a very interesting one when you talk about how we had gotten to a point where Hollywood was willing to come learn from us, and here we are
Yes.
at the moment. But how do you strike a balance between authenticity and global relevance? Because that's often what, when you talk to the local movie makers and those in the industry, they'll tell you we are trying to um, uh, relate it to what is globally relevant. We don't want to make movies just for Africa, and so you see them tweak it to make it Western enough
That
for
that is
acceptance.
that is that is due to colonization. Because when you say when you are trying to be like others, it means that you're showing the weakness on your own side to lead. You want to be like Hollywood because you're failing to lead. What is wrong with you leading Hollywood? What is wrong with you setting the standards for Hollywood to follow? To be honest with you, by 2010, 2011, Hollywood was ready to follow Nigeria. Hollywood was ready to follow African standards. But the Africans were not ready to take charge. Instead, they were trying, and again, I blame colonization.
Colonization.
Colonization. Because,
For how long are we
yes,
going
because
to how long are we going to uh, blame it on the
for as long
colonial
for as
masters?
long as you see your God and Savior as being white, you will continue to be colonized.
Wow.
For as long as you see your God and Savior to being white, you see that image again. That image of Jesus is a white person.
Mm.
That image
It,
of Jesus as a white man makes Africans, a lot of Africans, believe that the white people, the white man, should be the leader. Then you also look at what Hollywood has portrayed in movies and the fact that Nollywood has not been able to portray the same thing. For example, if you watch a Hollywood movie and you have a white man and a black man walk up to a house. Let's say there are treasures in the house, or let's say
mm.
there's a monster in the house. It is the white man that will open the door, not the black man. And usually it's the black man that will die first.
Mm. This is quite
Those are,
subtle. It's quite subtle,
yes,
but I get what you mean. It sends a message.
yes, those are planned messaging. It always makes that whenever you're doing something, even if you are the brain behind it, you always bring a white person in to seem genuine, to seem real. Even the Africans will not believe you. Let's say an African has found a cure for something. We always want to know, what does the white man say about this cure? Does he agree to it? Let's say you have a vegetable in your village. You want to know what the white man calls it. What is it in English? So why is it important to know the name of this thing in English? Why can't you push your name, push your local name to the highlight? Why is it important for everything African to be interpreted in English before it's authentic? Why is it that Africans want to bear names like somebody whose parent gave them a name, Edidia, will want to go to school and change the name to Blessing? Why is it important? But white people are not changing their name even when they come to Africa. They don't change their name to African names to feel um, accepted. So it's part of colonization that is the real issue.
Well,
And it's funny that it's not just this doesn't just happen in Africa. It happens here in the black communities. The black people in America act the same way as black people in Africa. They always look for white people to authenticate them. They do not build institutions for themselves. They do not create educational standards for themselves. For example, let's look at the educational standards that we follow at home. The educational standards that we follow at home do not promote individual creativity.
True.
Instead, we are adopting a method where you go to secondary school, a system set up by the colonial masters. Then you go to university, another system set up by the colonial masters. Then you get a degree that they provide the curriculum. Then you come out and look for a job in a system that is their system. Now, how come an African, a Nigerian, a Calabar man or woman does not take it upon themselves to say, hold up, let
This
us
doesn't
create
sound right.
a system. Let us create a system that fits our people. For example, both my parents were university professors. And I say to them, I say at least to my mother, my father is late, but I say to my mother, you guys are the problem. What you guys taught is part of the problem. Because, you see, somebody growing up, and this is part of the way when I talk to people a lot, you see, I'm involved with the creative industry. My NGO is focused on turning talent into jobs, careers, and entrepreneurship opportunities. I always tell people my NGO has the ability of eradicating unemployment. You heard the
Oh.
phrase I used. I didn't say reducing, I said eradicating. Because unemployment is there due to the colonized method of education and job creation that we use. If I was to come to your state of Cross River State, I put every unemployed person in a stadium and I line them up and I say, each person, show me your talent. Show me the talent you have. I'm not asking for your degrees, I'm asking you for your talent.
Talent.
Now, everybody comes, there's nobody that doesn't have a talent. So everybody's showing up with their talent. I then create the infrastructure for turning their talent into a job, a career, or an entrepreneurship opportunity. 100 people with talent, there's 100 opportunities created. Everybody walks home with a job. Unemployment eradicated. It's that simple.
Exactly. Why do you think it's so far-fetched and we're still recording such high numbers of
Because most
unemployment?
people, because most people in Africa are scared to go against the grain and challenge a system created by the colonial masters. For example, we know that your local language is Bantu. It's from the Bantu group of languages. Am I correct?
True?
Okay. If you cross over to Cameroon, they're also Bantu speaking. But you allow a border created by Europeans to separate you, and you have done nothing about it. You know that border was not there 100 years ago or 200 years ago? You know that people from Calabar, Cross River State, or Goja were crossing in and out of Cameroon as if it was their backyard, right?
True.
But you haven't done anything to stop what is present. They came and gave you the language, English, and gave you the other people French. What have we done to redeem ourselves? Nothing. Instead, we fight ourselves because none of us has the courage to go against the grain and say, hey, this is not what it's supposed to be.
Absolutely. Well, how important is it, for you, or rather, I guess I would like to say, how dangerous is it if this continues where it seems like we are heavily leaning, especially the creative industry, leaning on Western styles? How dangerous is it, say, in 10, 20 years? We also simultaneously raising a generation who would learn from what they are seeing today.
Well, what it all leads to is eradicating everything that is authentic in our side and keeping us dependent on the Western culture, Western foods, the Western everything. And then the smart Westerners will slowly come into our land because some of them know the system and they can slowly come into our land and pick up Gary and take Gary, bring Gary back to America and make sure they control the Gary farms, making sure they control the cassava farms. Then they Americanize Gary and we buy it from them based on their standards. You see, for example, right now, a certain set of people control African music because we have failed to take charge of our music. We have failed to create an economy with our music. So somebody else now controls our music. And just like that same group of people, they picked up the Black American music, the hip hop, the rap, and they used it to destroy the Black communities. Singing about drugs, singing about sex, singing about all the illicit activities on earth. But if you noticed, that same person did not touch reggae.
Mm.
He has slowly made reggae not non-existent because reggae was about revolution, togetherness, black power. And they haven't been able to tap into that. So what did they do? They systematically allowed the reggae stars to die off and never replaced them with new stars. Then they slowly go into what Fela created, the Afrobeat, and hijack it into being another variety, another variation of hip hop. Now you have hip hop artists in America joining with hip hop, joining with Afrobeat artists in Africa to create a new sensation of music with the Asakes and the Davidos and the Burna Boy. But listen to what they're talking about. They're not talking about revolution, even though they say they're doing Afrobeat. They're not following the footsteps of Fela. They are following the footsteps of the drug dealers in Black America. And those drugs are now in Nigeria. They're now in Africa. Crack is in Africa. Cocaine. You got young boys there on chronic, on all kinds of drugs. And those are the drugs that are promoted with the music industry. The music industry controls the culture now. So it's incredible when you see that because we are not taking charge of our creativity, Because we are not creating infrastructure to promote our creative industry, somebody else is.
This is still Joy Asanya Live. We have Mr. Nnamso Akpan joining us from Atlanta, from the USA. And we're discussing something very important. There's an urgency that we are not looking at how our cultures are being eroded, and we are letting it happen. How can we change all of that? That's what we're discussing, and we're taking the conversation now to how the diasporans can help in this. Do they even understand how important it is to preserve the culture in spite of where they may be living? Nnamso, are you still there?
I'm right here.
Right. Thank you so much for still staying with us. Do they even know, when you communicate with other Nigerians in diaspora, other Africans in diaspora, do they know the impending danger of letting go completely of their cultures and accepting these foreign cultures, sometimes even enabling and supporting it to such an extent that if it's not Western, they too do not accept it?
Well, again, colonization was a terrible drug that
Right.
was given to. A lot of our people don't even want our culture. A lot of our people don't even promote our culture. They have children and they don't share our culture with their children because to them, leaving our culture is kind of like um, it makes them feel they are growing. It makes them feel they're successful. Even in Nigeria, the last time I visited, I noticed a lot of parents do not want their kids speaking the local languages.
Yeah.
They prefer their kids to know only English. And I say to them, hey, it is important for your kids to know different languages, English, French, German, whatever. But it's even more important for your kids to master your language.
True.
Because when you master your language, they're able to see things around them and be able to create ideas whereby they can develop things from the things they have locally. For example, a kid lives in the village and that kid is surrounded by some little fruits called mpantok, the little orange fruits. The child does not know what mpantok is, so they don't know the power of that fruit. The child sits there, grows up, becomes an adult, does not have money, has not been able to tap into the creative economy because they don't know that those little fruits that they have in their backyard is actually a sugar substitute. But because they don't know what mpantok is in English, they abandon mpantok. So a lot of times, not mastering your language, your culture, and all those things, it puts you in a situation that you cannot capitalize and generate revenue from the creative economy. One of the number one movies, black movies that have ever been made is called Black Panther. Are you familiar with that movie? Do you know that that movie actually features the language of the Cross River and Ibibio people in Sabidi?
I really didn't know that.
Yes. The whole movie is about Nsabidi culture. But as your people and my people, how many of us knew that? How many of us benefited from that? How many of us knew that the number one black selling movie in the world was based on our culture? And in fact, we should join them and celebrate the movie. In fact, we should have had museums set up for that movie allowing people from around the world to come visiting Cross River or come visiting um, Akwa Ibom so as to experience Nsabidi, which is like the language of the Igbo and all those cultural groups.
Exactly.
So when you don't understand your culture or you're running away from your culture, others can use your culture and generate millions of
Millions
dollars.
out of it. But I mean, we're preparing for elections come 2027. Let's take this conversation to governance and policy solution, where Nigerians again are going to the polls. What specific policies would you recommend to promote indigenous content and protect Nigeria, maybe Africa's cultural identity, and what should electorates ask for? Do we even have candidates who are positioned, who are even aware of the many potentials in allowing our culture blossom instead of leaning towards Western styles and cultures?
See, a problem that we have in the electoral process there is godfatherism.
Okay.
Godfatherism. When you have a situation that one governor or one leader hands over to his godson or goddaughter, then it continues like that over and over and over. It's like you're not having people that actually are seasoned for governance. You're not having people who are actually worthy of the offices that um, they go into, they're elected into. In fact, I wouldn't even say they're elected into, they are assigned. It's more like an assignment. This person is going to be the leader, so I assign him to that office, and we're going to manipulate the papers and the votes to suit this assignment.
Right.
So, what we have to do is to, first of all, as the people, demand accountability, demand open elections, demand open primaries. In fact, political parties are part of the problem because if a political party uses a secret method to bring a candidate into office or into candidacy, then you're not even having the best represented. So if you have five parties and each of the five parties, none of them has the best person represented. So now all of a sudden you have five robots. You have five robots that are contesting against each other, and one robot has been already programmed to win. So we have to look into how these candidates even come out, and we have to, as the voters, ask the candidates, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about the oil? What are you going to do about creative economy? What are you going to do about education? What are you going to do about healthcare? And we also have to hold them accountable after they make their promises.
But
Because those are the
you visit Nigeria often, and you see these electorates, these people you're discussing, the citizens. Are they aware enough? Do they even know the power they hold as citizens to hold government accountable, especially in topics like the creative industry? Very often, or oil, for instance, would dominate the conversation, and you see conversations around very inconsequential matters. Where is your father from? What religion do you practice? Very superficial conversations instead. Are you confident that the citizenry are aware enough, informed enough, and even know what they have within
how
their,
can
how
how
powerful they
can
are in holding government accountable?
how can you be informed enough in the dark? How can you be even informed when you have no electricity?
Okay,
The situation there is so bad that
is it?
it's so bad in Nigeria. Let me share this with you. Some of my American friends, look at Nigerians and see Nigerians as the biggest clowns in the world. The biggest clowns. They see Nigerian leaders as buffoons, idiots, just idiots. Because in today's world, you don't have electricity. You're a fool. How do you steal your village money to deny your village people a basic human right? This, and it's not even just your mother, your father. As far as they live in Nigeria, they're facing the same evil. They're facing the same darkness. So, no, Nigerians are not even aware of what is happening because they're not even in the real world. Nigeria is a third world country. It's a third world country. And it's going to remain a third world country until leaders, for example, in Akwa Ibom State, something sensational is happening. A young man called Michael Bush has announced that he wants to be the governor. And the first thing he talked about was 24-hour electricity. 24-hour electricity. I had to call him up and say, I am going to support you because my 82-year-old mother has never experienced 24-hour electricity unless she's in the US. Do you understand how it is to live in a place that you have fresh mangoes, fresh oranges, fresh everything, but you don't even have a functional refrigerator to put that stuff in for it to be cool? We talk about a creative economy. How are you going to create in the dark? How are you going to make things in the dark? You have government that is talking about a deep sea port in Akwa Ibom. And they're so much in the dark that they cannot even ask, go to a place like your state, go to Cross River State and ask them, what did the seaport do for Cross River State? Cross River State is still a third world state. It's even worse than Akwa Ibom. Do you know that that state had the first seaport in Nigeria? What
That
happened
much
with
I
it?
do know.
It was used to drain the resources and, most importantly, the manpower, slavery. In the 1500s, the seaport was developed in Cross River, in Calabar. And that seaport, for hundreds of years, was used to take slaves out of Calabar, out of that whole region, to take resources out of that region. So when you see a state like Akwa Ibom struggling to have a seaport, and not just a seaport, but a deep seaport, that means a seaport that the giant ships can come in.
Can come
Oh
in,
my
yeah.
God. They will take everything out of there, just like they did in Cross River in Calabar. They will take everything out of there because the government there do not understand the need to, first of all, have their priorities right. So once you have your priorities right, you know that the first thing you should be talking about is 24-hour electricity, nothing else. That's what makes Michael Bush interesting to look at. His
So how do we
idea
all
of
ensure, how do we all ensure that it's not a rhetoric? We've heard this before. Everyone has good
by
intentions.
by holding him to the fire, by holding him to the fire, by
Yeah, yeah.
letting him know, let
How
him
can the
know.
diaspora community hold him though? There's only so much you can do.
The diaspora community can hold him to the fire, first of all, by supporting him. Because you can't hold him to the fire if he does not take that position of governance. But first of all, you have to understand what his mission is, his very singular mission. Then you have to tell him, look, We don't want you spreading up and down. We don't want you doing 20 things. We just want you to do that thing you say you want to do. Because the lack of that thing, 24-hour electricity, is the problem. Once the state has 24-hour electricity, however he does it, what's going to happen is Cross River is going to see. People are going to start moving from Cross River to Akwa Ibom, even though the road is so bad. But when you understand the power of 24-hour electricity, you're gonna it's gonna be like that once in a lifetime trip where you load your family on wagons, you load them on cows, and you make that trip and you cross that river to Akwa Ibom, because Akwa Ibom has or is slowly becoming the land of promise. And as soon as that happens, the government in Cross River are going to see that, okay, this is what he has done and this is the effect of it. As soon as they see it, they're going to copy. Then Ebony State is going to copy, Enugu, and so on and so forth. And before we know it, Nigeria will rise to the position it was supposed to be. So somebody has to do it first. And the people in the diaspora have to share, they have to support that person and support our people, because a lot of our people do not understand the power of electricity, honestly. And you might ask, what? How can somebody not understand that? How can you understand something you've never had?
Well, this sounds very interesting and exciting. However, with weakened national grid infrastructure, one will say he has good intentions, but can he make it work? I remember several
You
years
don't even
ago.
you don't even have to worry about national grid. I live in the state of Georgia. Do you know how many power plants we have here? 28. 28 power plants. Out of the 28, two of them are nuclear power plants. Each nuclear power plant is producing at least 1,000 megawatts. So it's not even, we're talking, see, that's the problem. When you have governors that have no idea of power infrastructure, they don't even know how electricity is created. So if you're a governor and you cannot wake up in the middle of the night and tell some primary school students how electricity can be generated, then how are you going to have a vision of electricity?
Right.
So it's not even a case of we shouldn't be bothered about the national grid.
I
Electricity
mean,
should be
the federal
something that
government still
every state,
controls, the federal government still
no,
controls
no, they
much of
don't.
generation,
No, they don't.
transmission,
No,
distribution.
no. The federal government has clearly said they're out of the generation game. They have said it. They have
Whatever happened to
signed.
the power plant that the former governor, I think that was Obongata,
It's
launched at the
there.
time?
It's there. It's performing. But remember that I believe it was Obasanjo, the former president, that after that power plant was commissioned, he linked it up to the national grid, and that power plant had to provide for the national grid, and the national grid would then decide on where the distribution goes.
Right.
So that has been part of the problem. When I asked um, about the performance of that power plant, I heard that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But you see, a forward-thinking, visionary government should not even be worried about that old power plant. They should come in with brand new ideas for nuclear, um, either nuclear power, hydropower, using gas turbines, whatever system that they saw that would be functioning is what I believe that they should be doing to make sure that the state is generating power and even able to sell power to other states.
Other states. Thank you so much, Nnamso Akpan. But if you, if you had the ears of policymakers, especially in Nigeria, as your final thoughts, what would it be?
If I had the ears of policymakers, I would tell them very simply, shut down everything else you're doing and focus on just one thing: electricity, 24-hour electricity. Because once you do that, the people will be able to dig themselves out of the hellhole they are in. 24-hour electricity is all the government of Nigeria should be. We shouldn't even, don't even talk about rail. Don't talk about anything. Don't talk about education. Just focus on 24-hour electricity, because the people have the ability of doing for themselves once they have power. But without power, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It won't work, just as it hasn't worked.
Thank you so much for being part of the show and for giving us the insight into how we can, of course, improve not just the creative economy and look inwards as to, you know, selling what we've got, our culture, our tradition, and the beauty of Nigeria, but also what we should do moving forward in terms of governance and how we can see Africa and Nigeria thrive. Thank you, Mr. Nnamso, CEO, Lantawood Job Development Association, and business development and entrepreneurship expert. Thank you for that. This is where we end today's edition of the show. Thank you. Until next time, when we come your way, do have a wonderful evening and rest well. Remember, Africa, Nigeria is ours. We should do what it takes to contribute to the betterment of this country.